Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrael Hawkins. Well, we're going to be talking about yet another mass shooting that took place. Seems like Colorado has been a hot spot for that over the last few years. Some COVID symptoms and how they relate to the brain. A new study has some information for us on that. And we're going to see an increase in COVID cases in spite of the ongoing vaccinations. But first, we're going to talk about Colorado and how it's once again in the news as another public shooting has once again occurred, this time at a supermarket. Well, 10 people were shot and killed, including the first police officer on the scene, and the 21-year-old suspect, Ahmed Al-Issa, is currently in police custody, while no motive yet has been determined. Well, even though he was known to police, this was unexpected. Family members of the suspect said that he was troubled, antisocial, and angry. Well, to the family members of the victims of the King's Superstore shooting, this is of little comfort to them.
Well, law enforcement said that the gun that was used was purchased legally just 6 days before the attack. And that was the gun that he also entered into the gun battle with when the police arrived on the scene. Now, Boulder District Attorney Michael Daugherty said that the actions of the officers, the first ones that arrived, they actually saved other civilians from being killed as they charged into the building under the heavy gunfire. Now, Eric Talley, the first officer on the scene, was among the 10 victims who lost his life on that day.
Sad. Well, the public wants to know what the motive was. Police chief of the city of Boulder said in a press conference, "We still don't have those answers."
Well, in Atlanta, Georgia, a slew of weapons were brought into a public supermarket, but the crisis was averted as a shopper alerted authorities that he saw an AR-15 style rifle. Atlanta authorities said the suspect was wearing body armor, had an AR-15 style rifle, and 5 other loaded weapons in that store. Now, police there, just like in Colorado, don't know what his intent was or what he was doing, but he too is currently in jail facing charges.
A new study on COVID-19 and its effects has revealed some interesting facts on non-hospitalized people who were infected with COVID-19. Well, the study found that 81% of the patients in the study suffered 4 or more neurological symptoms, one of those being brain fog. The chief of neuroinfectious disease at Northwestern Medicine, Dr. Igor Korolnik, said brain fog, headache, numbness and tingling, loss of taste and smell were some of the most common neurological symptoms, with brain fog, like we said, affecting 81% of those participating in the study.
Well, the interesting thing about this study was that these were younger patients who didn't have any severe illnesses. Now, some of the other symptoms were muscle pain, dizziness, pain, blurred vision, and tinnitus, which is that ringing in the ears. Now, there were symptoms from mild reactions to COVID-19. Dr. Igor said that in addition to these symptoms, there were cardiac, respiratory, GI problems, and intense fatigue. Now, for the non-neurological symptoms, that included the fatigue being 85% of those, depression, anxiety, shortness of breath, and chest pain, insomnia, blood pressure, and heart rate issues, and also the gastrointestinal issues. So a whole slew of problems that these, they've come to now be known as long haulers, ended up, well, not really developing, but experiencing,
yeah.
that's right, making the already situation in their body worse due to the coronavirus.
Interesting. Autoimmune disease, lung disease were also included in that list of symptoms as well. Dr. Igor said that one of the important things to realize about this study was that 70% of patients coming to the clinic were women, with 16% of those having pre-existing autoimmune disease, which is higher than what he said than what you'd expect in a normal U.S. population. Now, the doctor also said that COVID-19 causes a post-infectious autoimmune problem where the virus confuses the immune system into actually thinking that normal parts of the brain are abnormal and need to be attacked, which obviously leads to some of those other neurological symptoms that we mentioned before, but obviously also that brain fog as well.
Well, we're now going to turn to our field correspondent, Larry McGee, who has also been looking at the increased number of the coronavirus cases that many people are experiencing, but also new scientific data showing that they have now detected the coronavirus in the stool samples. So that is leading to some interesting articles as well. Larry, what do you have for us?
For every action, there is a cause. With the latest information released concerning COVID identifying the fact that co-infection with the virus impacts a person's mental stability, there is increasing hope now that awareness of that fact might lead to greater restraint concerning behaviors that produce pathology and lead to microbial mispopulation. People co-infected with COVID are reporting memory loss and being diagnosed with brain fog. Medical officials say at least 1/3 of those afflicted with the plague can expect to encounter neurological complications in addition to seizures and strokes. It has now been officially established that the virus has the ability to invade the nerves and the brain. While repulsive to the thought, it was the brain of someone which had the nerve to propose the idea of fecal examinations to develop more information on the plague. COVID has been found in the bowels, and so the area is now becoming a lively area for COVID research. Have a look at this video.
The COVID-19 pandemic has proven to be one of the most trying times for scientists, doctors, and people alike. But as time goes on, we're discovering more and more. And one of the latest findings is showing up in an unexpected place.
You've seen the headlines about COVID hiding in the brain, but now researchers are finding the virus may also be living in your stool. A recent study identified COVID-19 genetic material along with 33 mutations in stool samples of COVID patients. They are finding that it can live in the gut even in asymptomatic patients for up to 45 days. They are finding that it can live in the gut even in asymptomatic patients for up to 45 days. This shocking finding not only changes what we thought we knew about transmission, but also supplies answers to COVID's perplexing behavior and why some people get hospitalized while others don't even get a fever. COVID is making your gut its home. What does this mean for you in the future of treatment and prevention?
Well, Dr. Hazen, you and your team were the ones that discovered COVID's entire genetic code in the stool. So why do you think the virus was found there in the first place?
COVID actually sits on the ACE2 receptor. Where is the biggest organ where the ACE2 receptor are found? The ACE2 receptors are found, the bowels. So it made sense to me to look there because that's where everything ends.
We heard in the tape that COVID can linger in your gut for up to 45 days. So the big question is, does that mean that it's transmissible for that long, doctor?
We don't know. I think it's too early to know, but certainly that gives you an insight onto why does a worker go back to work and that person a month later, the colleagues or the workers are now positive, right? So right. They'll carry it in the gut and therefore they clear their upper respiratory symptoms, but then it's still in the gut. And when he goes in the bathroom, it becomes airborne. So essentially the bathroom is your biggest risk factor, the public bathroom. So you've got to be careful with that. So essentially the bathroom is your biggest risk factor, the public bathroom. So you've got to be careful with that.
Is there any way for people to determine if they have a strong or weak microbiome?
So we're not there yet. That's the whole basis of my research lab, is really to write the dictionary of the microbiome and disease. We are seeing that if you have an imbalance in the gut, you are more predisposed to disease. We are seeing that diseases are all about imbalances. We're publishing all that. We started with autism, and we noticed that autism is actually potentially a gut dysbiosis. In other words, something in the microbiome is altered, and we just need to replace it.
There is still ample cause for concern regarding the virus. It has only grown stronger to date, affecting over 30 million people now in just the U.S. alone. America is being hardest hit now in Michigan, which has the highest infection rate per capita. Officials are attributing the acceleration in infections to mutations newly come up, particularly the variant being identified as having originated in the UK. Those whom the nation has chosen to lead on education regarding the plague are warning that COVID-related deaths are not due to decline, and officials are starting to become more forthcoming now concerning the fact that vaccines will not safeguard a person against infection. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katanja, back to you.
Well, it's interesting how they're finding, obviously, of course, COVID-19 in the waste product, the fecal matter of people who are infected with the disease, like she said, that your gut ties into your brain. But not only that, it's interesting. We'll see how it develops over time. I think it was Florida we reported on not too long ago when they were finding COVID-19 in the waters, that they actually take that water from the sanitation system, treat it, clean it up, and then pump it back to the faucets of many citizens who drink that same water. But are they really getting COVID-19 out of there?
Right. And another interesting point that Larry reported on is the fact that the public restrooms were becoming a dangerous place, almost as the you could have one of these super spreader events there, because now they're finding it in the stool samples. And of course, you flush a toilet, it goes up in the air. People are inhaling it, as disgusting as that sounds. But
those hand dryers too.
That's right. Very unclean, unsanitary places now spreading coronavirus.
I stay away from them. Well, according to the CDC, 30% of all COVID patients report having some type of neurological issues, including brain fog and memory loss. Now, new research from the University of California, San Diego has discovered why some experience these issues. The study shows the virus attacks the brain differently than other organs.
Well, so the issue is that each organ system will react to the virus in a different way. Now, that Dr. Tariq Rona explained that to ABC 10 News. Now, his lab used stem cells to create mini organs to represent the lung and the brains. And when these organs were infected with COVID-19, the virus grew 10 times faster in the lungs. However, it damaged the brain far worse by triggering an immune response that caused cell death. Now, Dr. Tariq said even though the viral infection is much less in the brain, but this lower infection led to the pathway to kill those cells. So it was a lower count, but greater damage because it triggered that autoimmune system. So that was just something that they had just reported.
You're kind of causing the human body to start to self-destruct, seems like, yeah. And just when we wonder, are we winning the war against COVID with vaccines? Well, U.S. medical regulators have told Astrazenaca they must put a disclaimer on their shot for the virus, which is less effective than original claims. They have reasons to believe the company used outdated information in its vaccine trials.
Well, this is bad news as COVID cases begin to spike once again. Just last week, 18 U.S. states reported more than a 10% increase in cases. Now, 8 states also experiencing a rise in COVID patients being admitted to the hospitals, while there continues to be about 1,000 deaths per day on average in the U.S. And with these statistics come an urgency to get the country vaccinated. Now, Johnson & Johnson has 1 million doses of their one-shot vaccine ready to deliver by next week.
And the CDC says there's been a new single-day record for shots given at 3.38 million, and almost 90 million Americans have received one or more rounds of a COVID vaccine. Well, that number includes almost 35% of adults. With fears of new surge looming, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, director of the CDC, urges Americans to be safe, stating, "If we don't control things now, there is a real potential for the epidemic curve to soar again. We can turn this around, but it will take all of us working together," she said.
Well, in New Jersey, they are now seeing one of the highest coronavirus case rates per capita. And in Michigan, a very large increase in the number of younger patients being hospitalized. Now, the director of infectious diseases research at Beaumont Health, Dr. Matthew Sims, told ABC News the majority of the patients we're seeing are between the ages of 30 and 50. In the last 3 weeks, we've quintupled the number of admissions.
Well, even though Americans are tired of hearing it, the CDC is again pushing people to wear face masks diligently as well as get vaccinated quickly. The stories continue to come of people fighting for their lives and many losing the battle with coronavirus, leaving not only children without one or both parents, but parents childless. For many, it is a heartbreaking situation.
Wow. Well, some are taking strict measures to try and stop the spread of the virus. New Jersey's Rutgers University is the first college requiring students to be vaccinated before they return to campus for classes in the fall. Now, in a recent interview, Dr. Peter Hotez told CBS Evening News he believes Rutgers is doing a great idea, he explains, because we've had over the last year about 500,000 college students get infected, and there's been about a 100 deaths linked to outbreaks on college campuses.
So if you aren't sure how easily the virus can spread on a college campus, our final video tonight is one example of how students on a campus in Abilene, Texas, are not social distancing or really taking any precautions as they watch their school play in the NCCA basketball tournament. Take a look at this video for yourself.
Bring it home, baby!
You know, we're not trying to single out any college there, but it is situations like that where the viruses can very easily be spread person to person because of such close contact. You know, nobody wearing a mask. There's no social distancing at all. And, you know, we've seen these rates despite being vaccinated or the vaccinations, we've seen the rates continue to go up. So people, even with being vaccinated, are now contracting the virus, and you know, situations like we showed you there, that is making it even worse.
Yeah, and we've already seen in times past, kind of at the beginning of this situation, where spring breakers were heading down to Florida, and that became a super spreader event down there. And Florida is still reeling, you know, from the effects of that as well. So you get a lot of young people who don't take these things seriously. You have an upsurge in coronavirus cases.
And even though at first, when coronavirus first came out, they said, well, this is really targeting mainly the older generations, but now we see that it's really not a respecter of persons.
No.
Anyone there, despite the age, can come down with this coronavirus, and we're seeing that as the number of cases in those younger age are increasing.
That's right, that's right.
Well, if you'd like to learn more about these stories and more, contact the House of Yahweh. When you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the monthly newsletter and Prophetic Word magazine. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites by going to yahweh.com, yisraelhawkins.com, or yahwehsbranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to ypnnews.com. You can email the House of Yahweh at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. Like we've mentioned before, don't forget the free aid to assist you in studying the scriptures, the Yisrael Says and Ask Yisrael program, which are available online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can find those by going to yisraelsays.com and askyisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is Yisrael Hawkins showing you how all of these events were foretold thousands of years in advance in the sacred scriptures. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.